Joe Biden's disgraceful performance in the last debate exposed his mental frailty and cast a shadow over his candidacy. The question now is, does he still have what it takes to be president? Is Trump's victory assured? Watch until the end of this video to understand the impact of this crisis on politics and why Americans are doomed. In recent years, Joe Biden's health has become a recurring and increasingly discussed issue in the American political landscape. Since the beginning of his presidency, there have been questions about his cognitive and physical capacity to hold the highest office in the nation. Biden, who has previously suffered a brain aneurysm and has a history of cardiovascular problems, frequently shows signs of fatigue and memory lapses in public events. These incidents have fueled speculation and concern about his ability to endure the rigors of an electoral campaign and, more importantly, to continue leading the country. Simultaneously, the United States is immersed in a scenario of intense political and social polarization. The Biden administration has faced criticism from both the right and the left, with conservatives accusing him of weakness and liberals demanding more progressive actions. Additionally, Biden's foreign policy has been heavily criticized. The US's relations with several nations have deteriorated, while countries such as Brazil, India, and even some European allies have drawn closer to China and Russia. The situation in Ukraine, with the Russian invasion and the conflict between Israel and Hamas, have also been points of tension, where many believe the American response has been inadequate and insufficient. With the recent presidential debate, these concerns have come to the forefront even more intensely. Biden's performance in the debate was humiliating and widely criticized, and even longtime allies have begun to express doubts about his viability as a candidate. While some hypocritically argue that he should press on, others within the Democratic Party are considering whether Biden's continuation in the presidential race might jeopardize the party's own victory in the upcoming elections. In light of this situation, the question arises, does Biden still have the capacity to lead and win, or is it time to consider a new candidate? And how has his debate performance influenced this perception? Joe Biden's performance in the presidential debate was, at best, pathetic. During the broadcast, he showed clear signs of fatigue and disorientation, with memory lapses that compromised his ability to respond coherently and convincingly. Moments where he lost track of his speech and failed to articulate his ideas properly were widely exploited by Donald Trump and the media. These incidents reinforced the perception that his cognitive abilities are in decline, something that has been questioned since the beginning of his presidency. Donald Trump, on the other hand, and as expected, did not fare much better in terms of behavior. The former president focused more on personally attacking Biden than on presenting concrete proposals for the future of the United States. The exchange of insults between the two candidates turned the debate into a spectacle of verbal aggression, with little room for productive discussions about policies and government plans. This frustrated the more intelligent voters who were hoping to hear solutions to the critical problems the country faces, instead of watching two elderly men bicker. The debate, which should have been a platform for the candidates to present their visions and plans, ended up being an arena of personal attacks. Biden, trying to defend himself from Trump's assaults, missed several opportunities to talk about his achievements and plans for a second term. Instead, he found himself repeatedly on the defensive, trying to justify his ability to lead the country. This only heightened voters' concerns about his fitness to continue as president. Conversely, Trump also missed the chance to present himself as a viable alternative focused on the country's real problems. His insistence on personally attacking Biden, rather than discussing concrete policies, made him appear more concerned with discrediting his opponent than convincing voters of his own capabilities and plans. The result was a debate that, instead of clarifying the candidates' positions, left many voters disillusioned with the electoral process and the quality of the leaders in contention. I would argue that in this respect, Trump was at a greater disadvantage because those who like Trump will vote for him regardless, but those who do not vote for him do so out of hatred. With this kind of behavior, he fails to attract new voters, only strengthening his already well-established base and further alienating those who would not vote for him. The performance of both candidates in the debate made it clear that the 2024 presidential election is marked by a lack of clarity and focus on concrete proposals. With Biden showing signs of weakness and Trump focusing on personal attacks, voters are in a difficult position, having to choose between two candidates who do not seem prepared to govern the world's largest country and face the complex challenges that the United States currently faces. But how did Biden's allies and adversaries react to this disastrous debate performance? Let's analyze the repercussions and the consequences for the president's campaign. Joe Biden's performance in the presidential debate provoked intense reactions both within and outside the Democratic Party. Longtime allies, who had previously fervently defended his candidacy, began to express doubts about his viability for re-election. Key figures such as Representative Jared Golden of Maine publicly suggested that Biden should consider withdrawing from the race, a position almost unthinkable until recently. Golden argued that the priority should be ensuring the country's economic stability, regardless of who occupies the White House. Meanwhile, former President Barack Obama, one of Biden's main supporters, tried to minimize the damage caused by Biden's weak debate performance. Publicly, Obama defended Biden, stating that bad debate nights happen and that the focus should be on the fundamental differences between Biden and Trump. Obama emphasized that the election is a choice between someone who has fought for ordinary people and someone who only cares about himself. However, privately, Obama expressed concerns to allies about Biden's path to re-election, suggesting the need to bolster the campaign and improve communication with voters. Nevertheless, it wasn't just critics who spoke out. Some party members still maintain their support for Biden despite growing concerns. James Clyburn, one of Biden's main allies, stated that he would continue to support the Biden-Harris ticket, stressing the need for party unity to face Donald Trump. However, even he acknowledged that if Biden decided not to run, he would support Harris as the Democratic candidate, highlighting the complexity of the situation and the internal divisions within the party. Outside the political circle, public opinion was also quick to react. Many voters, frustrated with the lack of clarity and focus in the debate, expressed disappointment on social media and in opinion polls. The general perception was that the debate failed to provide a clear vision for the future of the United States, with both candidates focusing more on personal attacks than on presenting concrete solutions to the country's problems. This generated a wave of skepticism and concern about the direction the presidential campaign will take from here on. With shaken confidence, the Democratic Party now faces the challenge of regaining voter support and ensuring that its leaders live up to the public's expectations. But how have these events influenced the opinion polls? Joe Biden's performance in the debate had an immediate and significant impact on opinion polls. Following the debate, several polls indicated a sharp decline in support for Biden, with many voters expressing doubts about his ability to continue in the presidential race. According to a CNN poll, 75% of respondents believe that the Democrats have a better chance of defeating Trump in November if they replace Biden with another candidate. This data reflects a growing concern among voters about Biden's viability for a second term. Biden's drop in the polls also reflected in key election states such as New Hampshire and Michigan. Polls in these states showed that Biden lost any advantage he had over Trump, with many voters shifting their support to other potential Democratic candidates like Kamala Harris, Gavin Newsom, and Pete Buttigieg. Harris, in particular, has stood out, with 47% of respondents in a recent poll indicating they would support her in a direct confrontation against Trump, compared to 43% support for Biden. This decline in Biden's popularity following the debate puts the Democrats in a delicate position. The party faces the difficult decision of continuing to support Biden with all the associated uncertainties, or considering the introduction of a new candidate who could unify the base and present a viable alternative to Trump. If you are watching up to this point, it means you are enjoying the video. So make sure to subscribe to the channel as well, as it is crucial for us to post more videos like this. Help the channel reach 1,000 subscribers this month. Returning to the video, how will these numbers influence the Democratic Party's strategy in the coming months? And who are the possible candidates that could replace Biden in the presidential race? Given the growing doubts about Joe Biden's ability to continue in the presidential race, several names within the Democratic Party are emerging as potential substitutes. Vice President Kamala Harris is one of the leading candidates. Despite not being highly popular, Harris still stands out in the polls. In a direct confrontation with Trump, she garners 47% support, surpassing Biden and other potential candidates. However, Harris faces significant challenges, including the need to overcome public perception of her communication and leadership skills. Another strong name is California Governor Gavin Newsom. Newsom, who has been a vocal supporter of Biden, is seen as a young and dynamic figure capable of energizing the Democratic base. As the governor of the most populous state in the US, Newsom has a robust platform and a significant presence on the national political stage. His ability to attract support, especially among younger voters, makes him a viable candidate to replace Biden if necessary. Gretchen Whitmer, governor of Michigan, also emerges as a potential candidate. Known for her leadership during the COVID-19 pandemic, Whitmer has a strong support base in a crucial swing state. Her ability to govern a swing state and her popularity among Democratic voters position her as a strategic candidate who could unify the party and attract undecided voters. However, Whitmer would need to expand her national visibility to become a viable choice. Pete Buttigieg, the current Secretary of Transportation, is another figure to consider. With a meteoric rise in politics, Buttigieg stood out in the 2020 Democratic primaries and is widely recognized for his communication and articulation skills. As a war veteran and the first openly gay presidential candidate, he brings a unique perspective and can attract a wide range of voters. However, his relative inexperience in executive positions could be a point of criticism. Finally, there is Michelle Obama, wife of former President Barack Obama, who remains a highly popular and respected figure both within and outside the Democratic Party. Although she has repeatedly stated that she has no interest in running, many Democrats see Michelle as a leader capable of unifying the party and taking on Donald Trump. Her background as First Lady and her ongoing work on social issues would make her a formidable candidate if she decided to enter the race. With so many potentially strong names, how will the Democratic Party deal with this leadership crisis? What strategies and dilemmas will they face in the search for a viable candidate? The current political situation in the United States exposes a profound crisis of leadership and vision within both the Democratic and Republican parties. For the Democrats, supporting Joe Biden despite his evident cognitive decline is a clear demonstration of hypocrisy and a lack of commitment to the American people. Instead of prioritizing the well-being and effective leadership of the country, Democratic leaders seem more concerned with maintaining the status quo, ignoring clear signs that Biden is not fit to govern effectively. This stance by the Democrats is particularly frustrating for voters who expect more transparency and accountability from their leaders. At the same time, the continued support for Biden reveals a lack of strategic vision, as insisting on his candidacy could result in losing the election to such a polarizing opponent as Donald Trump. The inability to address this reality only deepens the disillusionment among voters who feel betrayed by a party that should represent their interests and values. However, the Republicans are not exempt from criticism. The unwavering support for Donald Trump, despite his numerous controversies and questionable behaviors, demonstrates similar hypocrisy. Trump, with his history of disrespecting democratic norms and divisive rhetoric, continues to be a polarizing figure that threatens the social cohesion and political stability of the country. The Republicans' insistence on supporting such a problematic candidate highlights a lack of commitment to integrity and morality in politics. This situation places American voters in an extremely difficult position, forced to choose between two candidates whom many consider unfit to lead the country. The lack of viable alternatives and the reluctance of the parties to promote new leadership reflect a broader crisis in American politics. Both parties seem more interested in preserving their power than in addressing the real needs and concerns of the people. In light of this scenario, the Democrats face significant dilemmas. If they decide to replace Biden, they will need to deal with the traumatic process of reorganizing their campaign and uniting the party around a new candidate. On the other hand, keeping Biden in the race could result in a devastating defeat at the polls. The strategies adopted in the coming weeks will be crucial in defining the party's future and its ability to regain the trust of voters. With so many internal and external challenges, what are the main problems that the United States currently faces? And what will be the greatest challenges for the next president? The United States faces a series of complex and interconnected problems that will require strong and effective leadership from the next president. One of the main challenges is the economy. Inflation has been a growing concern, with rising prices of goods and services weighing heavily on American families. Income inequality remains a significant issue, with a widening gap between the richest and the poorest. The new president will need to implement economic policies that promote sustainable growth while addressing inequality and ensuring that the benefits of growth are broadly shared. Public health is another major challenge. The opioid crisis continues to devastate communities across the country, requiring a coordinated and comprehensive response to both prevention and treatment of addiction. Thousands of Americans continue to lose their lives to overdoses, and the impact on families and communities is profound. The new president will need to implement effective policies to combat this epidemic, increase access to mental health and addiction treatment, and promote education and prevention programs to reduce demand for opioids. Political and social polarization in the United States is perhaps the most insidious challenge. The division between Democrats and Republicans, as well as among different social and economic groups, has deepened, making governance increasingly difficult. Inflamed rhetoric and misinformation contribute to widespread distrust in institutions and the media. The new president will face the Herculean task of trying to unify the country, promoting dialogue and understanding among different segments of the population. International relations also pose a significant challenge. The US's position on the global stage has been questioned, with allies expressing doubts about the country's reliability and adversaries seizing opportunities to expand their influence. Tense relations with China and Russia, and the complicated situations in Ukraine and the Middle East, especially the conflict between Israel and Hamas, require skillful diplomacy and clear strategies to protect American interests and promote global stability. The climate crisis is another urgent problem that the next president will have to address. With extreme weather events becoming more frequent and severe, the need for robust and immediate action is clear. Policies to reduce carbon emissions, invest in renewable energy, and prepare communities to deal with climate change will be essential. Additionally, the new leader will need to work with the international community to ensure a coordinated global effort against climate change. Lastly, the immigration crisis in the United States is a pressing issue that the next president will have to address urgently. Illegal immigration, conditions in detention centers, and asylum policies continue to generate intense debate and controversy. With thousands of immigrants trying to enter the country in search of better living conditions, it is crucial to find a balance between national security and humanitarian compassion. The new leader will need to implement fair and effective policies that address the root causes of migration, improve the legal immigration system, and ensure that the human rights of immigrants are respected without the American people bearing the brunt of the consequences. These complex challenges demand a strong, visionary, and pragmatic leadership, clearly lacking in both candidates. The next president of the United States will have to navigate a landscape full of uncertainties and difficulties to guide the country towards a more stable and prosperous future. Despite all the public and political pressure, Biden has announced that he will not withdraw his candidacy. This decision presents a challenging scenario for both Democrats and Republicans. The leadership crisis in both parties, reflected in the candidacies of Joe Biden and Donald Trump, highlights a lack of commitment to effective governance and the well-being of the American people. The Democrats' insistence on keeping Biden as a candidate, despite his evident cognitive decline, and the Republicans' continued support for Trump, with his polarizing and controversial history, indicate a political focus more on maintaining power than on addressing the real issues facing the country. The next president of the United States will face a series of complex challenges, from economic recovery and the opioid crisis to political polarization, international relations, the climate crisis, and the immigration crisis. Responding to these challenges will require leadership that can not only implement effective and fair policies, but also restore the confidence and hope of Americans in their democratic institutions. However, as long as US politics is driven solely by a thirst for power, the American people will, unfortunately, remain condemned. What is your opinion on the current political situation in the United States? Do you think Biden can still be president? Does Trump need to come back? Or would another candidate be better? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video helpful in any way, support us by liking the video and subscribing to the channel What is Happening. Also, check out these other 2 videos on the screen right now. Thank you very much for your support, and see you next time.